I still remember that moment, the sting of their laughter, the shock of their mockery, etched in my mind like a scar that refuses to fade. At my wife's family gathering, as I stood there in my work clothes, they sneered at my job, dismissing it as insignificant compared to their high-flying ventures. Their words hit me like a freight train, a brutal reminder of how little they valued the honest, steady work I poured my heart into. In that crowded, elegantly decorated dining room, I felt exposed, humiliated, and deeply misunderstood. But what they couldn't see was that their laughter was the spark that ignited a fire that would soon transform my life in ways they never imagined. It wasn't long after that gathering that I began to rethink everything. I had always believed in the dignity of hard work, even if it wasn't glamorous. For years, I had dedicated myself to my modest job, putting in long hours, earning respect in my own way. Yet at that family dinner, their condescending whispers and knowing smirks made me question my own self-worth. I left the party that night with a heavy heart and a burning determination to prove them wrong, not just with words but with actions that would shake the very foundation of their world. The next morning, I awoke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. As I sipped my coffee and reviewed my finances, I recalled the mockery and the snide comments, and something inside me snapped. I realized that while they laughed at my steady job, they had no idea of the opportunities I'd been quietly nurturing on the side. Over the years, I had been learning the ins and outs of business, attending workshops, reading voraciously about investments, and carefully saving every penny. Their dismissal had stung, but it also lit a fierce resolve to take control of my own destiny. I began researching the family business they so proudly boasted about, a venture that, according to whispers at the dinner, had been struggling under the weight of outdated practices and complacency. I spent days poring over public records, market analyses, and even talking discreetly to former employees. The more I learned, the more I saw an opportunity hidden in plain sight. Their prestigious business was bleeding money and innovation, a relic of a bygone era. Meanwhile, I had been steadily building my own financial acumen, ready to seize that chance. By mid-morning the very next day, I had arranged a meeting with a trusted financial advisor. Over a series of intense discussions, I mapped out a plan to acquire the family business. Every detail, from the valuation to potential restructuring strategies, was meticulously calculated. I wasn't driven by revenge, not exactly. I was driven by a deep-seated need to prove that my worth was not measured by a title or a paycheck, but by vision, determination, and the willingness to take bold risks. As the day progressed, I made several calls and negotiated behind the scenes. My advisor and I identified a window of opportunity when the current owners, caught off guard by their own internal turmoil, were willing to consider an offer. In a matter of hours, I put together a deal that was as audacious as it was calculated. I knew that if I could turn this venture around, I would not only silence the mockery but also establish myself as a formidable player in the business world. I still recall the moment I signed the acquisition papers. It felt surreal, as if I were in a dream. I had gone from being ridiculed for my small job to owning an entire business that my in-laws had taken for granted. The feeling was electrifying. I could almost hear their laughter echoing in the back of my mind, but now it was drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat, a steady, confident rhythm of victory and self-assurance. The following days were a whirlwind. I met with legal teams, restructured the management, and began planning strategic moves to modernize the business. I made it my mission to prove that hard work, integrity, and a willingness to innovate could overcome years of neglect and mockery. I wasn't just buying a business. I was reclaiming my dignity and rewriting my own narrative. With each decision, I felt more empowered, more certain that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As I walked into the new boardroom for the first time as the owner, the once familiar faces of my in-laws were absent, a quiet reminder that the dynamics had irrevocably shifted. I wasn't there to seek their approval. I was there to build something of my own. I assembled a team of professionals who shared my vision, and together, we began the arduous task of turning the struggling venture into a thriving enterprise. My first order of business was to overhaul outdated systems and invest in new technology, a move that was met with skepticism by those who had once prided themselves on tradition, but which I knew was essential for survival in a competitive market. Every late night spent analyzing data, every early morning spent strategizing with my team, fueled the transformation of the business. Slowly but surely, the business began to show signs of recovery. Revenues increased, customer satisfaction improved, and word of mouth started to spread that there was a new energy driving the company forward. It wasn't just about financial success. It was about proving that vision and determination could overcome entrenched attitudes and outdated practices. In the midst of these changes, I often thought back to that family gathering, the moment when they had laughed at me, dismissing my work as unworthy. It was a memory that once brought pain, but now served as a reminder of how far I had come. I realized that their mockery had been a catalyst, an unexpected twist in my journey that forced me to step out of my comfort zone and pursue a path of bold, unyielding ambition. By the end of the day, as I reviewed the progress we had made, I felt a deep, satisfying sense of closure. I had turned the tables in a way that was both surprising and transformative. The business I had acquired was not just an asset. It was a symbol of my resilience, my ability to rise above the shallow judgments of those who once doubted me. I knew that the road ahead would be challenging, that turning around a struggling business would require even more hard work and innovation. But in that moment I felt ready. I felt invincible. This is the beginning of my new chapter, a chapter defined not by the laughter of skeptics, but by the triumph of perseverance and the unwavering belief in my own potential. The business that once belonged to my in-laws, dismissed and derided by those who scoffed at my modest job, was now in my hands. And as I prepared to step into the next phase of this journey, I carried with me the lessons learned from every moment of humiliation and every challenge that had come my way. I soon found myself stepping into a whirlwind of boardroom meetings, strategy sessions, and relentless decision-making, a storm of activity that both thrilled and terrified me. Owning the business wasn't simply about acquiring a new asset. It was about proving that I could transform a legacy of complacency into a thriving venture. In the days after signing the acquisition papers, I was consumed by the challenges of restructuring a company that had been run by family dynamics, old habits, and outdated systems. I dove headfirst into its operations, determined to chart a new course defined by innovation, accountability, and efficiency. The first order of business was to understand every facet of the company. I spent long hours in the dusty archives of the old office, poring over financial reports, employee records, and meeting minutes that detailed decisions made decades ago. I encountered resistance almost immediately, from employees who were loyal to the old ways and from board members who doubted a newcomer's vision. It wasn't easy to convince them that change was not only necessary but inevitable. Yet, every skeptical glance and every murmured, "Who does he think he is?" only steeled my resolve further. I organized several meetings to share my vision, a future where the business would not merely survive but thrive in a competitive market by embracing modern technology and progressive management practices. I remember one particularly intense meeting with the senior management team. The conference room was filled with a mix of skepticism and guarded curiosity as I laid out a plan to revamp the company's core operations. "We have a rich history," I began, "but history alone won't keep us afloat. We need to innovate, streamline, and adapt." There were heated exchanges. One longtime manager, voice thick with emotion, insisted, "This company has always done things this way." I listened patiently, then countered gently, "I respect that tradition, but tradition must evolve if we are to survive. I'm not here to erase your history, I'm here to build on it." The discussion was challenging, and I left the room with both the weight of responsibility and a sense of hope. Slowly, some of the team began to see that my ideas were not about disregarding the past, but about forging a future where every employee could take pride in what we were building together. Outside of the office, my personal life was undergoing its own transformation. The sting of that family gathering, the memory of their laughter and scorn, remained a quiet ember in my mind, a reminder of why I had embarked on this journey in the first place. I wasn't seeking revenge, I was seeking validation on my own terms. I found solace in long evening walks, reflective drives, and even a rekindled passion for photography, which allowed me to capture the world with fresh eyes. Each snapshot I took was a testament to the beauty of reinvention, a silent affirmation that even when life takes an unexpected turn, there is always an opportunity to create something extraordinary. As the weeks turned into months, the changes I implemented began to bear fruit. I introduced new software systems that streamlined inventory management, revamped the customer service protocols, and even initiated training programs to upgrade the skills of our long-serving employees. Slowly, revenues began to climb and the old inefficiencies that had once crippled the business were steadily eradicated. With every small victory, I felt a surge of pride, a validation that my decision to take control was the right one. I was not just building a business, I was building a legacy, one that would silence the echoes of that humiliating night and prove that my vision was worth every sacrifice. Yet the road was not without its setbacks. There were moments when unexpected challenges threatened to derail the progress I'd worked so hard to achieve. One such instance came when a key supplier who had been with the business for decades suddenly pulled out of a major contract. The news hit our newly streamlined operations like a bolt of lightning, sending ripples of uncertainty through the team. Late one night, as I sat in my office surrounded by endless spreadsheets and frantic emails, I questioned whether I was in over my head. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, and I felt the familiar pangs of self-doubt. But then I recalled the very reason I had taken this leap, because I knew that true strength lies in embracing challenges and turning them into opportunities. With renewed determination, I personally reached out to alternative suppliers, negotiated new terms, and managed to secure a deal that not only replaced the lost contract but improved our margins. That night, I closed my laptop with a sense of triumph, knowing that every setback was merely a prelude to a comeback. In the midst of these operational battles, I also had to navigate the complex web of family dynamics. My in-laws, who had once sneered at my modest job and dismissed my ambitions, were now forced to reckon with the fact that their business was under new management. There were tense phone calls and awkward encounters at family gatherings where the topic of the acquisition was delicately skirted. I received a few curt messages, some laced with sarcasm and others with outright regret. I wasn't interested in rehashing old grievances, but rather in forging a new professional identity that was separate from our shared past. I learned to maintain a calm, measured approach, treating every interaction as a business matter, never letting personal animosity cloud my judgment. In doing so, I began to distance myself from the toxic legacy of that family dynamic and focus on building a future defined by merit and innovation. Simultaneously, I began to foster a culture of empowerment within the company. I held weekly meetings with all levels of staff, encouraging them to voice their ideas and concerns openly. I introduced incentive programs that rewarded creativity and efficiency, and I made it a point to celebrate even the smallest successes. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted, from one of resigned complacency to one of cautious optimism and collaborative spirit. Employees who had once been skeptical began to show signs of engagement and loyalty. I remember the day when a longtime worker, eyes bright with newfound confidence, thanked me for giving them a second chance at their own career. That simple moment of gratitude resonated deeply with me. It wasn't just about turning around a failing business, it was about transforming lives and restoring dignity. Throughout this period of transformation, I kept a meticulous journal, a personal chronicle of my struggles, setbacks, and eventual victories. In those pages, I recorded every trial, every moment of doubt, and every breakthrough that fueled my journey. Writing became a form of therapy, a way to process the emotional roller coaster that owning the business had unleashed. I wrote about the long, sleepless nights, the mounting pressure, and the solitary hours spent rethinking strategy after strategy. And gradually, those words turned into affirmations of my own resilience, a reminder that every obstacle was a stepping stone to something greater. The journal became my trusted confidant, a repository of the lessons I learned and the strength I discovered along the way. As the business continued to stabilize and grow, I found myself reflecting on the profound irony of it all. The very moment when my wife's family had ridiculed my humble beginnings had set in motion a series of events that led me to acquire their business, a transformation that seemed almost poetic in its justice. I wasn't driven by revenge, but by a deep-seated need to prove that my worth wasn't measured by a title or a salary, but by the determination to rise above adversity. Each day, as I reviewed quarterly reports that showed steady progress and listened to the cautious optimism of my team, I felt a quiet vindication. I had taken the humiliation and turned it into a foundation upon which to build a future defined by innovation and hard work. However, not every day was filled with clear triumph. There were times when I'd feel the sting of isolation, moments when the pressure of leadership weighed so heavily that I almost longed for the simplicity of my old life. On such days, I'd retreat to my favorite spot in the city, a secluded bench in a small, peaceful park, where I could watch the world go by without judgment. Sitting there, beneath a canopy of ancient trees and a sky that stretched endlessly above, I allowed myself to grieve for the life I had lost. But even in those moments of vulnerability, I found strength in the knowledge that every setback was temporary, every challenge an opportunity to grow. I learned to embrace my solitude, finding in it a clarity that spurred me to push forward with renewed vigor. Relationships, too, began to evolve during this transformative time. I reconnected with old friends and built new connections with like-minded individuals who were driven by their own passions. In late-night conversations over coffee, we shared our struggles and celebrated our small victories. These connections weren't based on pity or obligation, but on a genuine respect for each other's journeys. I discovered that surrounding myself with supportive, optimistic people not only bolstered my spirits but also sparked creative ideas for the business. In one particularly inspiring discussion, a friend suggested a radical new marketing strategy that combined digital innovation with personalized customer outreach. A plan that, once implemented, increased our customer retention rates by an impressive margin. It was a moment of collaborative brilliance that reminded me that even when the odds seem stacked against you, there is immense power in unity and shared vision. As the months passed, I began to see a clear picture of what the future might hold. The business, once mocked and undervalued by my in-laws, was steadily becoming a competitive force in the market. I implemented new technologies that streamlined our operations, revamped our brand image to appeal to a younger demographic, and even expanded our product lines to include innovative, eco-friendly options. Each decision was a deliberate step towards modernizing the company and proving that even a legacy business could be revitalized with fresh ideas and bold strategies. I learned that innovation isn't just about inventing something new, it's about reimagining what already exists and infusing it with a passion for progress. The transformation of the business mirrored my own personal journey, a metamorphosis born of heartbreak, nurtured by resilience and fueled by a relentless drive to succeed. Every time I reviewed the monthly performance reports or received praise from a newly satisfied client, I was reminded that I had turned a painful chapter of my life into a catalyst for growth. The laughter that had once haunted me, the sneers and dismissive comments that had cut so deeply, were now nothing more than distant echoes of a past that had propelled me toward a brighter future. One day, during a pivotal meeting with a group of potential investors, I was asked about my motivation for turning around the business. I paused for a moment, reflecting on the tumultuous journey that had led me to that boardroom, and then spoke with quiet conviction. I was once ridiculed for what I did, I was underestimated. That mockery fueled my determination to prove that true worth isn't measured by what you're born with, but by what you're willing to fight for. I turned pain into purpose. The room fell silent as my words resonated with a truth that went beyond mere business metrics. In that moment, I knew that my journey wasn't just about financial success, it was about inspiring others to recognize their own hidden potential. As investor interest grew, I realized that my story was becoming an integral part of the company's brand. I began to see that the narrative of transformation and resilience could be a powerful tool in marketing and public relations. I started sharing my experiences at conferences and in interviews, not with a tone of bitterness, but with a sense of humble gratitude. I spoke about the challenges I had faced, the lessons I had learned, and the importance of standing up for yourself even when the odds seem insurmountable. Each time I shared my story, I saw eyes widen with realization and people nodding in understanding. It was as if my journey, with all its trials and triumphs, was a beacon of hope for others who felt voiceless in the face of adversity. At home, the tension with my in-laws had largely dissipated into a cold, uncomfortable distance. They rarely mentioned the acquisition, and when they did, it was with a quiet resignation that spoke of missed opportunities. I no longer sought their approval or validation. I had built my success on my own terms, and that success was the true measure of my worth. Their mockery had once been a wound that festered in my heart, but now it had transformed into the very fuel that drove me to excel. I found that letting go of the need for their acceptance freed me to focus on what truly mattered: my vision, my team, and the future I was building every day. As the business continued to evolve, I began to take on a mentorship role within the company. I recognized that there were many talented employees who, like me, had dreams of contributing to something greater. I organized workshops, led brainstorming sessions, and fostered an environment where every voice could be heard. In nurturing the next generation of innovators, I found a profound sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just about turning around a failing business, it was about building a culture of excellence, one that celebrated creativity, accountability, and the unwavering belief in the power of transformation. In quiet moments of reflection, during solitary walks in the early morning fog or while gazing out at the city lights from my office window, I acknowledged that the journey had not been easy. The scars of betrayal and humiliation were still there, etched into the fabric of my being. But they no longer defined me. Instead, they served as reminders of the strength it took to rise above the darkness and to create something lasting out of the remnants of a shattered past. I had learned that every setback carried the seed of a comeback, and that true success is not just measured in profits or market share, but in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you overcame adversity on your own terms. Now, as I look forward to new challenges and opportunities, I am filled with a sense of hope and excitement for the future. My journey from the sting of mockery at a family gathering to the transformation of a struggling business into a thriving enterprise is far from over. I continue to push boundaries, to innovate, and to strive for excellence in every endeavor. I have learned that every moment of pain can be a stepping stone to greatness, and that the power to shape your destiny lies within you. This phase of my life is a testament to the fact that success is not handed to you. It's earned through persistence, resilience, and the courage to take risks even when the odds are stacked against you. I stand today not only as the owner of a revitalized business but as a living example of how embracing your inner strength can turn even the most crushing betrayals into the catalyst for a future defined by achievement and self-respect. My journey has taught me that while the scars of the past may never fully fade, they can become the roadmap to a future that is uniquely and brilliantly your own. In the early months after the acquisition, I worked tirelessly to overhaul every aspect of the business. I introduced modern technology, restructured the management team, and set up robust financial controls to eliminate the inefficiencies that had plagued the company for years. I remember the long nights in the conference room, poring over spreadsheets and strategizing with my new team. There were moments when the pressure felt overwhelming, a looming deadline here, an unexpected market shift there, but with every obstacle, I drew strength from the memory of that fateful family gathering. Their dismissive laughter had ignited a spark that now burned brighter than ever. I would often tell my team, "We're not just turning a profit. We're redefining what this company can be. We're proving that every overlooked idea has the potential to create something extraordinary." And slowly the company began to change. Revenues climbed steadily, customer satisfaction metrics improved, and even long-standing employees started to show genuine enthusiasm for the new direction. Beyond the boardroom, the transformation in my personal life was equally profound. I started to reclaim the parts of me that had been dulled by years of self-doubt and quiet sacrifice. I reconnected with friends who had always believed in me, forging deeper bonds based on shared experiences and mutual respect. I found solace in long runs along the city's outskirts and quiet afternoons spent with a book in a sunlit park. Each day, I felt a growing sense of fulfillment and liberation, a realization that my identity was not tied to the opinions or judgments of others. I began documenting my journey, writing in a journal that became both a mirror and a roadmap for my personal evolution. I wrote about the sting of betrayal, the grit required to rebuild, and the unexpected joy of discovering my own potential. Those pages, raw and unfiltered, served as constant reminders that every painful experience had a silver lining, every setback a secret opportunity. There were, of course, moments of introspection when I still wondered about the past. On quiet evenings, as I gazed out at the city skyline from my apartment balcony, I allowed myself to recall the hurtful laughter at that family gathering. I remembered how every dismissive remark had once cut me deeply, and for a moment, I felt a pang of loss, not just for what I'd been denied, but for the relationship I had once believed was unbreakable. Yet with time those memories lost their sting. I realized that holding on to the bitterness would only keep me tethered to a past that no longer mattered. I had built something far greater out of that pain, a business, yes, but also a renewed sense of self. I forgave not to absolve them of their wrongs, but to free myself from the constant reminder of what I had endured. That forgiveness, I discovered, was the ultimate act of self-love. The turning point came one crisp morning when I received a call from an old mentor in the industry. He congratulated me on the impressive turnaround of the business and mentioned that he had heard whispers of my story, from the moment my wife's family mocked my humble job to the day I acquired their business. His words, filled with admiration and respect, resonated deeply within me. I realized then that my journey was not merely a personal victory, it was an inspiration to others who had ever been underestimated or dismissed. That recognition reaffirmed my belief that true success is defined not by where you start, but by how far you're willing to go despite every obstacle. As investor meetings and media interviews became a regular part of my routine, I found myself increasingly comfortable with my own narrative. I spoke openly about the challenges I had faced, the sacrifices I had made, and the lessons I had learned along the way. I shared the story of that pivotal family gathering, the laughter, the humiliation, and ultimately, the decision that had changed everything. My honesty and vulnerability struck a chord with audiences, and I began to receive messages from aspiring entrepreneurs who saw in my journey a roadmap for overcoming adversity. The transformation of a dismissed worker into a successful business owner wasn't just a personal triumph. It became a beacon of hope for anyone daring to dream beyond the limitations imposed by others. At home, the atmosphere had evolved into one of quiet acceptance and renewed purpose. The tension that once simmered between my wife and me had cooled to a distant ache, replaced by an understanding that our paths had irrevocably diverged. We no longer tried to maintain the facade of a unified front. Instead, I found peace in knowing that I was living my truth, while she was left to navigate the consequences of her choices. The business I now owned was not just a financial asset, it was the manifestation of my resilience, a tangible reminder that I had the power to shape my destiny, regardless of what others believed about me. In those final, reflective moments, I often stood at the window of my office late at night, watching the city lights flicker like distant promises. I felt a deep gratitude for the journey. Every setback, every moment of mockery, every sleepless night had been a necessary chapter in the story of my transformation. I understood that while the scars of the past might never fully fade, they had become the foundation upon which I built a future defined by self-worth, innovation, and relentless perseverance. Now, as I prepare to embark on the next phase of my journey, I carry with me the indelible lesson that true success is forged in the crucible of adversity. I have learned that no amount of ridicule can diminish the power of a determined spirit, and that every betrayal, no matter how painful, can ultimately serve as the catalyst for profound growth. My business continues to thrive, my team is united by a shared vision, and I am more confident than ever in my ability to overcome whatever challenges lie ahead. This is my story, a journey from the depths of public humiliation to the heights of entrepreneurial success, from a moment of mockery to the triumphant acquisition of a legacy business. It is a testament to the transformative power of resilience and the unyielding belief in one's own worth. I stand here not as a victim of derision, but as a living, breathing symbol of what is possible when you refuse to let others define your future. And as I move forward, I do so with the quiet conviction that every ending is merely the beginning of a new, extraordinary chapter. A chapter that I will write with passion, integrity, and an unshakable belief that I am enough.